They tied her to a goat and laughed. The children's giggles echoed through the village like cruel drums, while the elders pretended not to see. They thought it was just another prank, just another way to humiliate the quiet girl who never fit in. But when the goat stumbled back into the village alone, something was wrong. Its eyes glowed with a strange, otherworldly fire. Its body trembled as though it carried a secret too heavy for a simple creature to bear. And where was the girl? That night, whispers swept through the huts. Shadows moved when no one walked. And in the dreams of the cruel children, she appeared, her gaze sharp, her presence heavy. Her silence no longer weak, but terrifying. What had the forest done to her? What had she become? Before we dive into this haunting African folktale, do me a favor, tap that like button. Subscribe if you love powerful tales with deep lessons. And share this story with someone who enjoys mysterious legends. Your support helps keep these timeless stories alive. Now, let's uncover what really happened when the goat returned. Not alone. Meera was always different. In a village where loud voices and strong personalities ruled, she was the quiet one. She preferred the sound of wind in the trees to the chatter of her peers. But difference in that place was dangerous. The children mocked her, endlessly throwing stones, whispering cruel names, inventing games that ended in her humiliation. And the worst part, the elders did nothing. They called it tradition. To them, Meera's pain was entertainment disguised as culture. One afternoon, the mischief of the village reached a new, merciless peak. Caleb, the loudest of the bullies, decided a simple insult was no longer enough. He tied Meera to a goat. Its rough fur scratched her skin as the rope pulled tight, binding her wrists. The children laughed so loudly the birds scattered from the trees. Even some adults smirked, pretending not to see the cruelty unfolding right in front of them. Then came the moment that would change everything. They pushed Meera and the goat toward the edge of the forest. The stubborn animal, startled by the laughter, bolted into the shadows, dragging the girl along the dirt path. Her cries echoed, but no one moved to help. To the villagers, it was just another prank. Another day of mocking the girl who never belonged. The sun began to set. The children stayed behind, waiting for the goat to return, expecting it to drag Meera back in shame, covered in leaves and tears. But when the animal stumbled out of the woods alone, silence fell. Its eyes, they weren't the eyes of an ordinary goat. They glowed faintly, almost human, as if carrying something from the depths of the forest. The laughter stopped. Unease crept into the air like smoke. "Where is she?" someone whispered. No one answered. At first, the elders brushed it off. They said she must have run deeper into the trees, too embarrassed to return. But as night fell, something felt wrong. The goat wouldn't graze. It stood at the edge of the forest, staring into the darkness, its body trembling as though waiting for someone or something to come back. That night, the dreams began. Caleb woke in a cold sweat, her name whispering in his ear. His friends, too, shivered in the dark, seeing flashes of her face in the corners of their rooms. Not the timid girl they once knew, but something stronger, sharper, with eyes that gleamed like the goat's. By the next morning, the village was restless. The children avoided the forest, too afraid to face what they might find. The adults whispered about spirits. Some claimed they had seen shadows moving where no person walked. Others swore they heard her name carried by the wind. The elders tried to silence the talk, but their own eyes betrayed them. They were afraid too. Still, no one spoke of guilt. Not yet. As the days passed, the air itself seemed heavier. Caleb and his friends started to crumble. They could not sleep. They saw her reflection in water jars, her shadow behind their backs, her voice whispering, "You did this to me." The once proud leader now avoided the village square, trembling at every gust of wind. His laughter, the same laugh that once mocked Meera, had died on his lips. The goat remained near the forest's edge, always watching. Its eyes glowed with that same unnatural light, as though it was waiting for her to return. Some villagers began to fear the creature itself, whispering that Meera's spirit had entered it. Others avoided it altogether, treating it like an omen. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, Caleb swore he saw her silhouette between the trees. A figure tall and still, watching. When he blinked, she was gone. But the fear remained. He no longer doubted Meera was out there. And she was not the same. The prank that began in laughter had turned into a curse, not just for Caleb and his cruel companions, but for the entire village. For in the silence that followed her disappearance, everyone began to feel its stat-heavy presence in the air, as if the forest itself was alive, waiting, holding its breath. The goat had returned alone. But Meera was no longer alone. For 5 long days, the village lived in fear. The goat still lingered by the forest, its strange eyes glowing faintly at night like burning coals. No one dared to touch it. The children who had mocked Meera stayed inside, trembling at every rustle of wind. Even the elders, once so proud and dismissive, began to speak in hushed tones about old legends, tales of spirits that lived in the heart of the forest, waiting for the cruelty of humans to awaken them. And then, just as hope had faded, Meera returned. She appeared at dusk, walking slowly from the tree line. But she was not the same girl who had been dragged away. Her once timid eyes now burned with a strange, luminous glow. Her hair flowed as if stirred by a wind no one else could feel. The goat followed behind her, but it no longer looked like a simple creature. It walked with purpose, as if it knew it served her. The villagers froze. Some gasped. Others bowed their heads, unsure whether they were looking at the girl they once ridiculed or a spirit wearing her face. Meera stood tall. The silence of the crowd pressed around her like a wall, but her voice cut through it, calm yet heavy. Carrying the weight of something far older than herself. "You showed me no mercy," she said, "no kindness. You left me to the forest." The forest answered. The wind picked up, the trees swayed, though the air was still. The villagers shivered as though unseen hands brushed against their skin. Around Meera, the air seemed alive, thick with power, humming with the presence of spirits. The goat's glowing eyes swept across the crowd like a warning. Caleb, the bully who had tied her to the goat, dropped to his knees. His lips trembled, but no words came out. He had dreamed of this moment for nights on end, dreams of her shadow in his hut, of her voice whispering in the dark. Now she stood before him, real and unyielding. "Forgive us," one of the elders finally whispered, but the words sounded hollow. Forgiveness could not erase what had been done. Meera looked at them not with hatred, but with something deeper, disappointment. Her gaze seemed to pierce their hearts, forcing them to see the cruelty they had laughed at, the injustice they had allowed. Every villager felt it. The shame, the guilt, the truth they had long ignored. "The forest is watching," she said softly, almost like a whisper, but every ear heard it. "If you continue in cruelty, you will not only lose Mew, will lose everything. The land, the animals, the air itself. The balance will break, and you will pay." Her words struck harder than any curse. For in their bones, they knew she spoke truth. Already they had seen changes. Animals restless, winds carrying voices, nights too heavy to sleep in. The forest was alive and it was angry. Then something unexpected happened. Meera raised her hand. The goat stepped forward, its glowing eyes fixed on Caleb and his friends. For a moment, they thought it would attack, that the spirits had sent it to destroy them, but instead, it knelt. The goat lowered its head at Meera's command, and the air seemed to still. "Change," she said. "That is all I ask. Break the cycle of cruelty. Respect the land. Respect each other, or the forest will take what you refuse to give." It wasn't revenge. It was a warning. A final chance. The villagers wept. Caleb pressed his forehead into the dirt, finally broken, finally aware of the pain he had caused. The other children followed, their voices shaking as they begged for another chance. Even the elders bowed, realizing that their silence had been just as cruel as the children's laughter. From that day forward, everything changed. The bullies were sent into the forest not as punishment, but as servants of restoration. They planted trees, cared for animals, and worked under Meera's guidance. Slowly, they began to understand. Cruelty had no place in a world that depended on balance. Each day, the weight of their guilt lifted as they replaced destruction with care. Meera became the village's guardian, a bridge between people and forest. The goat, now more spirit than animal, never left her side. She spoke with the wind, listened to the trees, and taught the villagers the old ways of harmony they had forgotten. And in time, the land itself healed. The forest grew lush, the rivers flowed clear, and the village thrived as never before. But no one forgot. Every time they saw Meera walking among them, glowing with quiet strength, they remembered the price of cruelty. And every time the wind whispered at night, they thought of the day the goat returned, alone, and what it carried back with it. Because in truth, Meera was no longer just a girl. She was the voice of the forest, the protector of balance, and the reminder that kindness is never weakness, but cruelty always has a cost.